I'm Glenn Citerony, professional life coach and corporate wellness speaker. This is my YouTube series, Thrive and Transcend. So let's get into today's topic about finding peace. A woman in 1980 at the Owens River in Northern California had the remains of her son in a box. He was cremated. She was going to put his remains in the river. And this is what she said. The water was clear and high as I knelt over it, she described. I opened the container and emptied it into the rushing water. What was meant to be a prayer became an outraged demand. You take care of him, I screamed at the sky. That quote was from actress Mary Tyler Moore in 1980. She was holding the remains in a box, the cremated remains of her son, Richie Meeker. Richie unfortunately died at the age of 24 due to a firearm accident. I read Mary Tyler Moore's autobiography many years ago. That quote stuck with me. She was expressing grief mixed with anger. Deep grief from the loss of her son and anger over the circumstances. Anger at fate and even directed at God for allowing such a tragedy to occur. Mary Tyler Moore, for those too young to know who she was a tremendous comedian and actress and was part of two dominant series in the 60s and 70s, the Dick Van Dyke Show in the 1960s, and her own show, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which ran for about 7 seasons with great ratings. She was at the top of her game. She was at the top of Hollywood. But in this case, she was at the lowest of lows with her son. How do you get past that? How did she get past that? The pain of a tragedy that cannot be changed. And how do you find peace? We all get dragged in the past constantly by thinking of what should have happened, what could have been done, likely playing the if only if. In fact, Mary Tyler Moore was racked with guilt over her motherhood, believing that she could have been a better mother. And if she would have been a better mom, maybe that tragedy wouldn't have occurred. That's the trauma from tragedy, but equally heavy is the burden we place on ourselves that arises from guilt. What's sad is often in these situations, especially those involving children that leave us too soon, is the guilt that occurs and how do we get past that guilt and how do we move past the tragedy? And in these cases, this has not happened to me, but you never get past the loss of a child. You just manage it in your heart. But how does that occur? Not just with those situations, but anything that we get through in life. How do we find peace over things that we cannot change? First, let me preface my comments that there are countless books, creation of mental health programs, and spiritual movements over the course of millennia, divinely and intellectually inspired, that have focused on how to work through tragedies or situations in life that cannot be changed. So I come about this humbly. And the concepts that I'm going to talk about are not easy to implement and not easy to talk about in a very short video. I'll have a blog about this. But these are areas that you may want to explore in greater depth in your own pursuit of knowledge and your own ways of potentially moving past some of these unchangeable situations. Concept number 1, the healing process of time. When you have a physical injury, it takes time right? The body's inflammatory response kicks in and the healing process starts. It's just like emotional trauma that has to have time. And what happens is one way that time heals, or at least helps you manage with what happened, it brings you from the immediate emotions. I'm moving towards the camera, right? And as I move towards the camera, I can only see the camera. But as I move out, like what time provides all of us, you can see, like for me, I can see the windows, I can see the room. It's a broader landscape. And in those moments with time, it provides you the ability to have more compassion for yourself and what happened, and also provides you potentially meaning over what happened, or at least getting greater meaning over the circumstances that occurred. That's what time allows. Concept number 2, the potency of ancient philosophy. Stoicism started over 2,000 years ago to deal with tragedy and working through challenges of life. Stoic philosophers had a tenet about understanding what's within your control and what is not within your control. and understanding that only within in your control is your own judgments and the stories and your attitude of what happened. You can't go back into the past and change it. But what's the story that you've created? What are the colors? What's the narration in your head? The ability to understand the power of how we perceive, the power of our attitudes. Really, the only thing that we truly control is within us. And understanding that gives you the path to peace. I'll give you a quote from Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher. He talks about this sphere of control, and I'll read it to you. Free from hindrance are those things that lie within the sphere of choice, while those that lie outside the sphere of choice are subject to hindrance. When someone has come to understand these things, what is to prevent them from living with a high heart, a light heart, an easy mind, calmly awaiting whatever may happen, and putting up with what has already happened? Meaning the sphere of choice, the power rests in our own judgment of events. These are hard words. Epictetus was a slave. He lost his functionality of his leg due to his slave owner. He eventually found his freedom, became a philosopher. But what he's talking about, the slave owner couldn't take away his own Epictetus's mind and his ability to work through the tragedy and trauma, because he knew that's where the power rests, within his own mind, his own judgment, his own attitude. Concept number 3. This comes from German philosopher and writer Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche talked about the concept of amor fati, the love of fate, loving everything that has happened to you in your past, everything, the good, the bad, the mundane. Those are hard words. Thinking, okay, so I need to go. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't change anything. And the answer is no. You wouldn't change a thing, according to Nietzsche. Because all those factors in your past, everything that has happened to you, even the bad, the tragedy, has formed the foundation of where you are now. It's the foundation of wisdom and the ability to understand meaning. And that ability to accept it, to process it, to say, yeah, it's happened, and I love everything that's happened, because I wouldn't be here today in where I am, potentially even with or taking out the bad. That's what Nietzsche is saying. The Stoic concepts of the sphere of control and Nietzsche's amor fati really talks about fortune and fate. Fate makes no difference of how many degrees you have, your wealth, the technology. Fate is fickle, and the Stoics knew that. But what is not fickle, within what remains in control, is our acceptance of what happened and processing that and understanding everything rests with you and how you perceive the events and the learning that takes place and the wisdom that accumulates and aggregates from everything that you've gone through. Concept number 4, the use of therapy, going to a therapist. Sometimes people poo-poo going to a therapist for mental health reasons. I think that's the ego talking. That's the ego saying, I don't need that. That doesn't work for me. So why go to a physician for your physical health? Isn't your mental health just as important? I would say it is more important, because the mental realm, the spiritual realm, affects the body. So going to a therapist to talk through what you've gone through, to share, provide your perspective, get a different and non-biased perspective is invaluable. Find a good therapist. If one doesn't work, go to another one. And here's me talking from a coach perspective. My perspective is, 1 hour of therapy that may not work. That's only 1 hour. If I only worked out 1 day a week or 1 hour a week, I wouldn't get the results necessary for my physical fitness. When you go to your therapist, ask, hey, what should I be working on the other 6 days of the week? What are the concepts I should be employing? And then ask them to hold you accountable. That's the coach talking. Because when I coach clients, I'm holding them accountable and saying, hey, are you working on these concepts? What's gotten in the way of performing these? That's critical for therapy. Concept number 5, connect with the divine, your spirituality. Giving up control, understanding what you don't control, is really realizing that a higher source is ultimately providing you the strength and wisdom to get through whatever you're getting through. It may not, that higher source, the divine, may not fix it. And I don't believe God is in the fix-it game. God is in the game of love, compassion, and cultivating the divine within you to handle and to equip yourself to whatever is coming forth towards you in terms of some of the challenges and adversities in your life. What's important is connecting to the divine, even in the good times. I'll give you an example. I have a wife, but if my wife Jackie, and if I saw Jackie every couple of weeks, and when I saw her, I'd say, "Hey Jackie, this is what I need. I'm having issues in my career. I'm having issues with groceries. I'm having a problem with my relative. Like, what is this laundry list?" And then I'd walk away. The divine wants a relationship, whatever spirituality that you have. He or she wants a relationship with you every single day. And that means you reaching out and having gratitude for the day's events, for what you do have. It could be praising the divine for those items in your life. Prayer and meditation are critical components, and prayer encompasses multiple facets of connecting with the divine. And sometimes that's just in silence, just listening to what's in your heart. So what I'm pointing out is try each day, in the morning, at night, could be between meetings, thinking of the divine, connecting to the higher source. And that could be at an office, in nature, whatever brings you, whatever helps you connect to the divine from a spiritual standpoint, do it. Because in the moments of trying to find out ways to find peace and getting past the things that cannot be changed, you cannot ignore the spiritual component, which is ultimately at the core of your source, and the divinity, which is you. My last quote is from an Austrian psychiatrist and survivor from a Nazi death camp, Viktor Frankl. Frankl writes, "When we're no longer able to change a situation, just think of an incurable disease such as an inoperable cancer. We're challenged to change ourselves. We are challenged to change ourselves." So if you can't fix, and obviously can't fix the past, well, what can we do? We have the ability to change our perspective, change our character, change the way we perceive things, and ultimately can change the inner mental mindset and the inner fortress that we have. And that inner fortress is all the concepts that are provided, they work synergistically. So ancient philosophy, amor fati, time, connecting to the divine, all the concepts I've talked about, all are amalgamation, like an amalgamation of metals that come into play to create your inner fortress that can survive the waves, the crashing waves, like at a beach. And you can work through what you've gone through and get past what cannot be changed and come out of it stronger, wiser, more compassionate, not to others, but to yourself. I hope you do that. This is my YouTube series, Thrive and Transcend. I'm glad you joined. I'm grateful for you joining. Hit the subscribe button if you like this. Hit the like button if you like this video. I speak about in the video series about emotional and physical health, self-improvement, personal development, and spirituality, as we just talked about. And I'll see you in the next video.